hopefully you hit that remind me button so you knew to come in. We want to welcome you in with us. We have two fantastic guests today. Very, very excited about having them both back. We were there earlier this year, and we've got lots of things to talk about and unpack that's happened throughout this year. And we're talking about sharing updates on healthcare staffing. This is our HR Leadership Roundtable, and I have two leaders from two great organizations. My first one here is Ms. Carole Hackett. She is the Senior Vice President and Chief Human Resource Officer at Houston Methodist, located here in Houston, Texas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And then we also have Mr. Shibu Varghese. He's from MD Anderson. He is the Senior Vice President and Chief Human Resource Officer and Chief Diversity Officer there at MD Anderson. He also located here in Houston. Welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And those of you who are just now starting to get into our discussion in the comments, please let us know where you're signing in from, what city, what state, what country. Those of you who are HR professionals, if you're part of the SHRM certification, we are offering an hour of CE credit for this particular, or PDC rather, for this particular session. So look for the activity ID up at the top. And so we already have Leah Ramsey. She's coming in. She's saying hello. Welcome, Shibu and Carole. So welcome to you both. Well, we got quite a few things to unpack today. I'm so excited about these different questions and what your answers are going to be. First of all, let's start off with what are some of the trends that you're seeing, the latest trends that you're seeing in the, as far as thing is concerned, within the health landscape in your part. And we'll start off with you, Carole.
Oh, sure. Absolutely seeing some trends that I think, in Houston, but I also think are nationwide. And one of the things that we're seeing is that there's a lot more mobility of our employees. A lot of employees are starting to, think about changing careers. They're also thinking about making a change in 2021, doing something that definitely is what we're seeing. We have a little bit higher turnover than we're used to. And so we do believe that the impact of last year has really, made people think about what is it that they want to continue doing. We also have seen a higher number of people retire from healthcare as well. Now, granted, our population, I think our average age of our population is about 44, but we do have a number of people that, are in their 60s and higher that have made a decision to retire. So I see increased mobility. I also see there's a demand for talent. We're all, looking for, the talent that we need, and especially this year, and I know Shibu would agree with me that the volumes that we're experiencing in the hospitals have been extremely high. Many more percentages over 19 and of course over 20. So if people delayed getting care, they are coming in now. They're sicker and volumes are higher. With staffing, I think everyone has the experience of people wanting to work from home. We'll talk about that later. And so offering more flexible schedules, offering the remote, as well as focusing on work-life integration. How are they going to fit work into their life, and how flexible are we going to be with our benefits and working arrangements, environments, etc. Those are the main things I'm seeing today.
Awesome, that's a lot. And I have some follow-up questions on that. There's some great stuff there. Shibu, how about on your perspective? What are you seeing from your end?
Yeah, it's funny because Carole and I are in the same region, basically walking distance. Our institutions are from one another. So a lot of what she said is exactly what we're experiencing as well. But I think what the pandemic has really done is really allowed employees to really take time off to really think about what do they really want out of their career, really what do they want to see for the next 20 or 30 years that they are professionally in this environment, right? So I think, I would say maybe years ago or probably pre-pandemic, everyone's focused on compensation and benefits. Now it's changed to, I want flexibility, I want empowerment, I want my employer to really focus on wellness. Carole touched on work-life balance, right? So how can I integrate some of the things that I do at home with my professional life as well? So it's really blending. And for healthcare, I always say, unlike many other industries, we're a little dinosaur, right? We put all of our energy and our effort on the patients and the clinical aspects and the research aspects. But when it comes to really administrative, we're just now bending that curve. We're really thinking about what does that future look like for the average employee. Yes, shift work is there. Someone has to take care of the patient. How do we empower our staff? How do we provide that wellness that they need, but at the same time, the flexibility that every employee is requiring? So we're all having to pivot. From HR professionals, we're having to think differently in what that future looks like for our staff.
Well, that's a great point.
Rollis, real quick.
Sure.
Sorry.
Uh-huh.
Some like the live on it, it's very choppy. It's like cutting in and out a lot.
Okay, the sound or the picture or what? Or both?
Most of the sound.
Most of the sound. Let me just take a moment just to address the sound. 1 second here. I think I do have a proposed solution for that. So if you're watching, we are going to fix. See, this is the beautiful part about live. Sometimes things just come up. And let's see if we can fix that. See it hopefully get better as we go on here. Can you just say here's what we can do. Carole, how many people roughly work at the Houston Methodist organization? That'll give me a good sound check.
Probably, as far as head count, it's 26,500.
Okay, let me try one more thing here because that didn't 100% work. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay, well, hopefully we can get that worked out. All right. Yeah. So I'm noticing that. Let me try one other thing. We're going to see if that helps speed it up. So we'll just continue on with our discussion. The next thing I wanted to, I didn't get a chance to ask you, Shibu. Roughly how many people work in your organization?
We're at 22,000.
Okay, did that sound come through? Okay. Let's see here. Everything looks like it's say one more thing there, Shibu, if you don't mind. I'm gonna look at my levels down here.
Okay. At Andy Ensign, we're currently at 22,000 employees.
Okay. 1 second here. I think I got it. Okay, one more time. Say it again. Okay, one other thing. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. I think I got it. 1 second here. Because now it muted out for some reason here. Testing 1, 2. It's so weird. I got it. Okay. One more time. How many do you have? It's like I'm not hearing it for some reason. I got everything. Oh. Oh wow. Okay. Oh wow. That's what it was. Okay. Say it one more time.
All right. At MD Anderson, we only have 22,000 employees. Work.
Have you ever seen someone get so excited that you had 22,000 employees? Okay, Carole, how about you? Go for yours again.
At Houston Methodist, I have 26,500 employees.
There we go. Love it. Okay, so guys, in the comments, let us know if we fixed it. I think it's fixed now. I think it is fixed. So I think we're good to go. And so let's talk about work-life balance versus work-life integration. I love that both of y'all used both of those terms. What are the nuances? Are there any differences between the two? Do you think there's a difference, Carole? Maybe we'll start with you, and then we'll follow up with Shibu.
Well, personally, I think it's very difficult to call it balance, right? Because every day is a new day at work, and when you get home, same thing. So balance is very difficult to achieve. But what I think people are looking for today is that they can effectively integrate work into their life. And what I mean by that is they can be able to do the things and prioritize they want to do at home and have the flexibility from their work and their work life to be able to, live the goals that they want to achieve on both a personal level and then a career level.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the challenge, I think, healthcare, what we're running into is with patient care is 24/7. I mean, you're talking about, patients don't go home on the weekends. I mean, they're there all the time. They're there through the night. So when we look at staffing, we look at shifts, we look at, our employees that provide that care to be there for a certain amount of hours. And so for them to jump out and go to their kid's soccer game or go to a play, it's very difficult. So as HR professionals and as HR leaders, this is the new reality for us. We're going to have to think about what can we do in this new world, in this future of work concept that can really provide that life at work concept for these employees that are seeking that. It's easier to do it on an administrative side. It's easier to do it on the business side. But for those individuals that are directly taking care of patients, that's where we see the bigger challenges.
Oh, that's a great point. And we got a lot of comments coming in, folks. So Colleen says, great sound now. So thank you for your feedback, Colleen. Ken says, yay, technology is grand when it works. So true. I mean, here I am. I got a couple of my biggest guests of the year, and I'm sweating bullets here trying to make sure the sound is working. So thank you for your patience, both of you, and I really appreciate that. Someone also said here, Ian Reynolds, he agree. Work-life fit is the new EE value proposition. Now that's one, I haven't heard that one. Have you heard that one yet? The work-life fit.
I have.
Yeah.
I have. It everything fits together. What people are looking for is, really that optimal ability to be able to take care of themselves. Wellness, as Shibu said, is a huge, huge priority right now. Wellness and well-being, two different things, as well as, being effective at work and really being there for their family. It's a lot. It's a lot to put together, and it requires, again, a ton of flexibility on all sides.
Absolutely. And then Adam, he said, Adam says hello. He's coming in. Also, Grace she says aloha from Jacksonville, Florida. Okay, very good. So Leah says, I've been seeing a lot about 2021 being the great resignation. Does that ring a bell for either one of you? Shibu, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think many articles that we're all reading, it goes back to what Carole and I said in the beginning, and that is, employees are really thinking about what do they want to do with their life, with their career. I think the last 16 months have really given employees an opportunity to think about what's meaningful and are they bringing their best selves to work. So for the individuals that may have not really seen this as a new norm, or maybe have figured out ways of doing other things, or maybe had the opportunity to think through what is really re-energizing them. So people are resigning. And, we're starting to see, there was a time when people left because of management, or, what we're really seeing during this pandemic is people are retiring, as Carole said, and people are resigning to do other things, start a new chapter of their life. I mean, it could be in the medical field, it could be in the healthcare. It's what they want to do. And that flexibility is there. We also touched on being able to be flexible of wherever to work. For example, an employee that may want to work for another company based out of Boston or Chicago, they can do that by still living in Houston. I think those flexibilities are now happening. So you're not confined to that local employer in your neighborhood or in the city. So those are different, opportunities that employees are finding, which is really a benefit for the employees as a whole.
Do you think that could also be a benefit for maybe the organization too, because now they can recruit anywhere in the United? What are your thoughts on that? Carole, what would you say to that?
It definitely opens up the pipeline for talent, especially in some areas like IT, and as Shibu said, administrative areas. People also, the trend, what I'm seeing is now that people can get away, they can fly, they can get to other states, they're actually going to lakes and oceans and working from there. We have to watch our tax laws and everything, in that state, and be careful with that. But if they can work, they can go and sit on a house in the lake and work from there and be very productive and enjoy themselves as well. So there's all kinds of dynamics going on right now. People also don't necessarily want to commit to a set schedule. So we are seeing an increase in contingent workers that really only want to come and go as they see fit, that works for their integration of work into their life. And so we're seeing more of that, which means that we have to look at our benefits and what we offer for those types of contingent workers. To me, the statistics are staggering. Something like 47% of the new workforce is considering contingent work, if that's really true. But it caught my attention. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, and I've been hearing some similar numbers. I'm just like, wow, this would be pretty rough on a lot of organizations if they had that, especially if they all decided to do it within a short period of time. So I have a thought for you. This is a little bit of a fun question. We're going to come to our discussion, but I have a little bit of a fun question here. I asked this on my CNO roundtable not too long ago, and I want to ask you guys, get your opinion. Okay, so you have a couple of choices here. Either you give up your 10 favorite dishes, or never eat at a restaurant again. Which one would you go with?
Ooh,
tough one. And in the comments, I want you guys to answer as well. This is important, guys.
I think I would say my 10 favorite dishes, because I don't always during the week have time to cook my favorite dishes anyways.
Okay.
I spend on restaurants. So now it would be my 10 favorite dishes.
Okay, so you'd rather give the 10 favorite dishes and be able to go to any restaurant you want. Makes sense. How about you, Shibu?
Same here. I'm a foodie, and I'll find new 10 dishes that I like.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll make it happen.
I love it. Yes, I like to see that. That's that positive thinking. Are you just a positive thinking kind of guy? Is that just how you're wired, Shibu?
I just love food. That's a problem.
I love it. Okay, this is that's one of my favorite answers right there. I tell you, I love both those. You're willing to give up on the 10 favorite dishes because the restaurant. I get it. And there's so many, especially here in Houston, guys. We have amazing food here. I mean, there's so many restaurants. Oh my gosh. What's your favorite? What's your favorite restaurant? Any favorites?
Oh.
Yeah, there's so many. I will say on the Kirby side, the upper Kirby, I do love Grace's. It's family style. Kids love it. We can all go there. For the ones that are local, if you have not tried it. But I could give a plug to so many others, but there's just so many. I think you're absolutely right, Houston. And the other thing was pre-pandemic, and I'm hoping this happens even post-pandemic. There's a new restaurant opening up every week. There's something new to try. You could truly not repeat a restaurant for a year by going to different ones. I mean, that's the great thing about Houston.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
My favorite is Hillstone. Used to be Houston, right on Kirby, but they call it Hillstone now. Absolutely love that place.
You know what? I'm so glad you said that. I saw it on my Google review thing, and I was like, that was on my list. So you've just given me the confidence. I'm definitely going to go there.
Really good.
Yeah, I remember when it was Houston's too. Okay, so now let's see. Okay, good. I'm getting good feedback on this now. Okay, good. So my next question is, how is compensation feeding into things? I know we had some issues, especially when we're talking about like the nurses, right? From last year, there were some issues there trying to get in the proper staff there. How do you see that affecting either now or in the future?
Yeah, we're seeing it's not only nursing anymore, it's also the therapists, right? As respiratory has become a spotlight during the pandemic, but respiratory nursing, these are all clinical positions that we have to definitely keep a watch on. I think the local Houston market does well. We do fairly well because we have schools, we have that supply, but we also have a lot of competition, and that is there's so many hospitals in a dense, geographic location. So an employee can go from one hospital to the other, depending on what they see and what they want. So competition is stiff. So we're constantly, I think, thinking about compensation, really looking at what are some of their needs. But it's not, if you really speak to staff, I think when we really look at exit interviews and things like that, compensation is not becoming the number one thing anymore, because I think everyone does pay fairly well. They're looking for everything else. I mean, we're talking about empowerment. We're talking about flexibility. Are there resource group, employee resources group, where those employees can feel like they belong to something bigger than their job itself? So they're looking for different things, and those are the things that we're trying to tackle as HR leaders is, what really motivates an employee to stay? Yeah, because I can provide the right compensation. Somebody else will always offer $1 more, right? Because that's the name of the game. So it's really what keeps that employee from looking or jumping for that $1 more. So those are the really tackle benefits that we're really after. And that goes back to some of the things we talked about, is really rethinking flexibility and wellness and scheduling and empowerment and all those things that really creates that whole employee. So that's a different way of looking at it for us now.
Yeah.
Love that.
Now, I would definitely echo that. I will tell you, you have to get the base compensation right to get in the door, right? I will give you that, right? You have to be market competitive. You don't have to be leading, but you have to be market competitive. But then after that, it is the total rewards that people look for. So, what are the investment plans? What is your PTO? Time off? What is your lifestyle accounts is what we're hearing lately. People don't necessarily want 50 menu items in their benefits pick from, as much as they want what I'm hearing is called a lifestyle account, where it's a bucket of money, literally, that they can pick and choose benefits they're going to put more or less to. That's that flexibility that we've been talking about. So we actually are really, really looking at our comp strategy and our comp philosophy to look at more of a total rewards. Because once you get them in the door, you got to retain them, right? Exactly. And that's the hardest thing that we're seeing is what is it going to take for people to be retained? And so it is much bigger picture than just compensation itself.
Makes total sense. We've got quite a few comments that have come in since we've been talking here. Leah was mentioning, she says to Ian, I've always talked about work-life integration, but work-life fit makes so much more sense. So that's something new that came out of our discussion, the work-life fit. I've never actually heard of that. Carole says, great conversation. Thank you, Carole. Appreciate you being here. And we also have other folks coming in. Ramon from Argentina. Wow. So we have Colleen from South Africa and Ramon from Argentina today. Wow. We're all over the place. Okay, awesome. He says, Ian says, we need to involve from the conception and or sponsored of the effort. Okay, he's talking about another comment someone else made. Sorry. This is great. It's okay. So I have another question for you. Favorite form of communication? Email, phone, text.
Yeah, so I see it in different ways. I love email, just the fact that it's on my time. I can get to it when I can get to it. But at the same time, an employee may send an email, or when a peer or someone, even if it's in the evening or nighttime after work, if I have some downtime, I can look at it and respond. The thing about text, to me, it always puts me on alert. I always feel like text equates to, I need your response immediately. And I will also say phone call. I mean, when we're in meetings such as this, or, you're in meetings all day, Zoom calls all day, there's no way you could respond to a call. So email is the best for me, just because I can at least respond, think and respond. But text, it's a little too urgent that it's sometimes just hard to get back to.
That's actually great. That's a great point. Okay, what about you, Carole? What's your perspective on this?
We get hundreds of emails a day, right? And trying to control that number and try to be thoughtful with every email gets more and more difficult. Then you added Teams, Microsoft Teams to it, and people ping you on chat on Teams now. So, what device am I looking at? Email, Teams, text. I mean, kind of makes you schizophrenic a little bit. But I would agree that although email can be misconstrued at times because people can read the tone of the email differently, I love face-to-face, and we haven't been able to do that in a year, but I love that more personal approach, so I can see the verbal and nonverbal and make sure I understand the communication. But for quick answers, it definitely would be email or text.
Do you feel like we're in a mode right now where our employees are not sometimes able to pay full attention to what we're trying to share or give out to them because they're kind of overloaded? You mentioned this about the teams and having all these different forms of communication coming in. Do you think that's playing a factor at all right now?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It makes it a challenge for communication because the main mode of our communication in the organization is email. And not everybody reads email every day. What about our housekeepers? What about our environmental service workers? We have found virtual town halls and people joining in chat like this have been very successful because they could choose to come in or out and they could ask their questions and get answers right away.
That's a great point, Carole. I jokingly say to my wife, this is all preparing us for the next generation of workers, because my kids can have a phone, a game, a TV running and they're doing 3 or 4 different things at one time. And I was always so fascinated. I'm like, how are you balancing all of it? Because for me, I have to have one screen, or if I'm on the phone, I'm giving all my attention to that one thing, where they could do so many different things. And but I will tell you, over the last 16 months being on Zoom, I'm really realizing people have their email up. You can have 2 or 3 screens up. Some people have obviously 2 monitors with different screens. From Rollis, you probably know you have so many things going on because you're doing audio, video, you're making sure, I think I'm fascinated by it because I think it's really just preparing us for the future, because the next generations that are coming out, that they will come into the workforce wanting so many different things going on. I don't think they could really focus on just one task at one time because they're actually prepared to do this. And I mean, I guess that's a positive. I don't know, because I'm still in that middle generation where I'm still learning both sides of it. I want to balance so many screens and so many things at once, but I do also want to respect and spotlight that conversation, because what frustrates me is when I am in a meeting via Zoom or something, and I have 6 of my employees and 4 of them have their head down, or you could tell they're doing other things because they're not looking at the screen. So, I grew up, spotlighting every conversation. So, those are some things that I think we're going to have to learn over time, because that is really the way the world is today.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think communication, I think what I'm seeing is people want communication in smaller bites.
Yes.
They don't want long conversations. They don't want to hear your opinions and long drawn out, ideas. They like smaller bites of communication multiple times. And I think that's what you're describing, as when you can multitask in so many different venues, you're just listening to those small bites. I worry that there may be some lost intent or content when you do that. And did they really understand what I said? But pretty much they do a pretty good job with that, listening in those small amount of bites.
Right. And that's such a great point, because for sports fans out there, the NBA Finals is going on. It just started, I think, last night or so, or 2 nights ago. And, here I am, I would spend 3 hours watching the whole event. And my son will next day, he didn't even watch it with me. And I know he was out playing volleyball, so he didn't even watch the event. But the next day, he was able to tell me all the highlights from it. I'm like, how do you know all this? You didn't even see the whole game. Because they don't have to see the commercials. They don't want to see all the other stuff. They want those small bites of action. They get it. They know exactly what happened. They know who won. They're done with it, right? Like, whereas for myself, I'd have to see the whole game to know what happened. So yeah, you're right. I mean, for our kids, for the next generation, that is exactly what they need. It's small bite size. They get what they need and they move on.
That's a great point. I mean, and so, guys in the comments, let us know what you're thinking. What do you what do you think about our conversation? Are you multitasking when you're in these Zoom meetings? Are you looking at email while you're in the Zoom meetings? This is a safe space. We can share, okay? I know I've been guilty of it. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screens in my office here, as not phone and my iPad. Actually, that would be 8 screens. So my attention can get diverted easily. So that's such a great point. You can, because when you're in those meetings and they're hearing you, or maybe they are hearing you, but it's like, I think who said that? I think it was Carole. The bite-sized. I think that's the key. We found that actually with we do quite a bit of recruitment videos, and we found that when we used to do the 2-minute ones, they didn't pay attention. Now, well, at least not as much. Now we brought them down to a minute. Now we've got some of those down to 15 to 30 seconds. It's the whole video. And those are getting more watched and more engaging than the ones that were, let's say, 2 minutes long. And we're finding that when we look at the stats, the percentage of people that drop off if it's too long is staggering. So like you could have a 2-minute video and they only watch like 25% of it. That means everything that was last minute and a half of the video, 90% of the people saw it. So it's like, let's take that same video and let's cut it in 4 30 seconds. That way they'll see most all of it. And that actually has worked. So it plays into your point about our bites pieces. That's what we're focusing on now. Leah says, she has a comment here. She says, there's so many differences or preferences in communication within the different generational workforces. It's always important to ask your coworkers their preference for communication as well. Is there intentionality behind that? Is there, have you seen folks in your organization do that where they're asking the other parties, okay, what's your method of communication? Or is it just kind of understood, kind of overall, this is our main part of communication that we use? Carole, do you want to try that one?
Yeah, I do think there's intentionality. I mean, because we have to be able to get the message through to everyone that exists in the organization. I remember when my kids were in college, they would never pick up the phone. I always wanted to talk to them and see how things were. The only reason they would answer me is if I texted them, right? They weren't interested. And so if I knew if I had to communicate with them, I had to text them. So I would tell you that we are getting more and more chat platforms and more text platforms for communication. But then you have your mature generation that really wants to have a dialogue and really wants to make sure they understand. So I think intentionality, and I also think flexibility in how leaders communicate, that it's not a one size fits all, that you have to know your team and know what's most effective.
Great point. How about you, Shibu?
Yeah, Leah, I mean, you bring up a really good point. I mean, we have different generations in the workplace, and we have to stop thinking through the lens of pandemic, because post-pandemic, there are going to be meetings that are going to be face-to-face, right? There are going to be events that are going to be face-to-face. There are employees that you will have to meet face-to-face. And as Carole said, I think intentionality is there. The managers want to do what is the best possible form of communication that employee wants to receive it in. But at the same time, sometimes it is just based on the sheer number of employees a manager has. And they probably communicate based on what's easy, and that happens as well. But, communication is so critical, and that flexibility is so crucial, because in leadership, things fail and things break when you don't communicate. So I think if leaders can really sharpen that skill set in ensuring that the right communication is given to the right employee to make sure they receive it, a lot of those breakdowns in communications, the perceptions, all of those get wiped away. And I think that's so crucial. So I think it's really thinking through all of that, but that takes work. I think every leader has to really work on that to ensure that the employee is receiving it in the right form.
Yes, great point. Yeah. So Joanne says multitasking at its finest. I think she was laughing at me with my 8 screens. And Ian says, for urgent matters, nothing beats a quick call. So he's apparently a part of that camp. So my next question is, what are key areas of need? Shibu, would you like to start us off? What are some key areas of need that you're seeing with staff? Then we'll go to Carole.
Yeah, okay. So if I take the big picture and look at, obviously clinical expertise is important. I mean, we're looking at nurses, we're looking at therapists, respiratory therapists, and things like that are our critical need. But now we're really focusing on skill sets, right? So I mean, if you're looking at titles, that's where we're at. But if you're looking at skill sets, we're looking at different things now, right? So leaders, there's several skill sets that we're looking for, communication being one. So we're starting to really tackle on, we're doing behavioral interviews, even clinical staff positions, because skill sets are so important for us. So when we talk about multitasking in a healthcare scenario where you're really expected to have great bedside manners, we want to make sure our employees can keep eye contact. If they're multitasking and the patient is trying to talk to them and they have a phone in hand and they have their laptop and they're trying to type it, so there's certain things that are expecting from our staff. So now we're really focused on those skill sets. So even though generationally things are changing, there's core things that we're expecting from our staff in providing that direct patient care. So those are some of the things that we're really trying to sharpen the skill sets on, and we're really emphasizing that. Schools are putting out nurses, schools are putting out there, but those soft skills are not being taught. And those are things that employers are having to really focus on, either building it through internships, through onboarding, but those are things that we really have to hone in on.
That's great. Yeah. How about you, Carole?
Yeah, one of the things that we started looking at are entire experience for an employee, be it pre-hire, with our sourcing and filling the pipeline through onboarding, through the first 30, 60, 90, through their first year. And we built personas according to job title of what they were looking for, what the skill set we needed, but the personas really come from that group of employees telling us what they really want. And what we found out was they really want people to know who they are. And so we have this concept called Know Me. I want to be able to apply to an organization in which if I applied once, you have my resume on file, you say, oh, welcome, Shibu. You have applied in the past. You know, how can I help you? And you could use bots, you could use chat, you could use any of the technology that's out today. But I don't want to have to fill out the application again if nothing has changed except for the job that I'm going for. So I want to be able to upload my resume. I want ease of access. And I want you to know who I am. And it's just like Amazon. When I sign on to Amazon Prime, they know who I am and they say, hey, this is what you bought in the past. And hey, I even have suggestions for you on what you can buy next, right? I'm looking, they want to know that they don't have to just necessarily reach out to us, that if you come to us, and this is what we're trying to build, we're not there yet, I'm going to recommend some jobs for you that are open, right? Then as soon as they hit the door, they want that personal experience, and then they want to know what their next is. So we've built what's called a career central, in which we hook people in during their orientation period to have an appointment, if they want, with
Hear me now? Let's try that. Testing 1, 2. I think the audience can hear me. Now I want to make sure my guests can hear me. How about that? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. See, we're having fun, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that this happened. All I can do is keep a smile and keep going. That's what life is like, right? It's kind of like we were all doing our thing back in February, and then of 2020, and all of a sudden March comes along. It's like, wait a second, I wasn't planning for this. So that's the experience.
No worries.
Okay, so my question was successful projects and initiatives. You started to talk about the Knowles, which is great. I love that idea. Shibu, can you think of any recent projects or initiatives you're working on? And then Carole, we can come back to you.
Yeah, I want to get a little bit more broader than internal, but one of the things that we've really seen is individually, each of our organizations have been focused on internal issues, internal projects, but this pandemic has really brought partnership amongst my peers. So if you look at the medical center and the number of hospitals that are here, we started benchmarking with one another. We started meeting every other week with one another to really talk about what's going on in each of our organizations. So we're not having to reinvent the wheel. And then we started sharing with one another, because employees, organizations are organizations. We're all dealing with the same issues regionally, nationally. So it was great to set partnerships. So I think, one of the things that I'm starting to see, and now it's not just within my Houston peers, but my neighbors here, but it's also nationally with other organizations, speaking to other fine organizations in the country, talking about what they do, how they're doing things, because a lot of us are dealing with the same issues. So I think, the world that we lived in, that bubble that I lived in pre-pandemic, was really focused on MD Anderson, things that we needed to get done internally, just looking at some of the issues. But now that I've kind of expanded that scope and really working with the medical center in Houston, probably, I'm hearing about problems before it even happens at MD Anderson. I can proactively prepare for those. Or there are things that other organizations are doing that I may not have even thought about. So I think those are some of the great things that the pandemic has really done for us, is really sort of go beyond our local level.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I love that. Getting those outside perspectives to help and knowing problems before they have an MD Anderson. That's amazing. Okay, how about you, Carole?
Well, I'm going to say ditto to you, Shibu. It's been wonderful having that collaboration and really learning from each other, because we're all in the same boat and we all want to do what's best for our employees. So it's been incredibly helpful. And even though, in a sense, we compete for the same talent, but we've built such strong partnerships, that it doesn't matter. It's just, supporting each other. As far as projects, one of the things that we really, really embarked on that helped us this past year was more innovation, trying to look at different ways to do things. And innovation is not just technology as much as it's saying, what problem are we trying to solve and what's a different way to solve it, right? And how can we, put a lens on for effectiveness and efficiencies? And so thinking outside the box of how to get things done and how to streamline and how to reduce variation and all those things our organizations want us to do. But on the people side of the business, we're one of the highest costs in our organization. And so it is our role to be as efficient, as effective as possible. We formalized that, and we built an HR innovation center and an HR innovation team into the lines with our organizational innovation team as far as the system. And what we do is we learn so much on what they're doing to automate access for patients, and all the automation that takes place with virtual ICUs and iPads and communication devices. Hey, well, how does that fit with the people side of the business? How can I improve access for our employees, access for our new hires? And it's been a really good project of helping us think differently to be able to meet the goals of the organization.
Love it. Great. So I'm hoping I might get a nugget or two from both of you. I'm supposed to be doing a speaking engagement at the National Association of Healthcare Recruiters, and I'm talking about talent acquisition in relation to diversity, basically the practical value of diversity and equity and inclusion in the talent acquisition process. So if you can share with me any tips or tricks from what you have learned in your organization. I know you're an award winner, Shibu. You won an award earlier this year for diversity. So maybe you can start us off, and Carole, if you can add some points from your perspective on how that's playing into your strategy either now or in the future.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great question. I mean, when we talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think that's important for every single organization. I mean, and it's really the diversity of thoughts, the diversity of ideas. It's a diversity of so many different things. But what we do is we really look at three different pillars at MD Anderson. And one is really the educate. I think for many years, all of our organizations have done a great job in educating employees, recruits, whatever, of the importance of DEI within the organization. But the second phase, I think, is where we're all at, is really the engaging. And that is, I think all of us done a great job in educating our staff on the importance of DEI, but the engaging is really getting our staff involved. There's resource groups, there's diversity councils, there's things that they could be a part of that's bigger than their role itself. So I think those are some of the things, especially even in recruitment. One of the things we do at MD Anderson is for any leadership position, every final candidate pool has to have a female, a minority, and a male. And that's a given. And then we choose based on that, right? Because it's that intentionality. So really engaging the organization. What we really need to get good at is the final phase, and that's integrating. And that is where you don't even have to think about DEI. You're not educating, you're not engaging. When you integrate, it automatically happens without somebody constantly having to say, don't forget, we need to have diverse candidates, or don't forget, we need to have, engagement groups, where it's just part of your business. And it's not just the employee piece, but it's the business piece. It's the marketing piece. It's the supply chain piece. Your whole business becomes involved in that DEI. So education is where we've all been. Engagement is where we're all at. Integration is where we should all strive for. And I think that's the piece that's what all of us are working towards these days.
Love that. Love that. And Carole, how about you?
Well, I have to tell you, we've all learned from Shibu in the medical center. We formed, we had a Zoom or a Teams meeting to learn what we're doing, because really Shibu has led a fantastic DEI initiative and strategy. And so I just want to call out to Shibu for being a leader for all of us. And then second of all, the one thing that we did do with the career center we built is we're looking at our entry-level positions, which are environmental services, transport, food and nutrition. And we're looking at the staffing needs of the organization. And so the staffing needs of the organization for us right now are around patient care assistants. You just can't find enough of them out there right now to help support, the clinical enterprise. And so through the Career Center, we're vetting our own internal folks. We call it internal mobility program, and we're going to be putting them through education needed, or we're going to be partnering with an outside education institution to get them trained and build a pipeline that way. So that does help our DEI efforts as far as helping to enhance and advance careers.
So basically what I'm hearing is that you're bringing them in through there, but perhaps showing them some type of career ladder to work their way up through the organization by starting out by educating them in that patient care assistant role. Is that the right thinking? Is that what I, is that
If they want that. If they want that. That could be their next. And a lot of people come into the organization in those roles just to get into the organization, not really understanding what their next is. And what I find, and I know Shibu has too, some of these entry-level positions, these employees, apply for multiple jobs multiple times and not understanding why they're not getting the opportunity. Right? So we want to be able to help them with that process, so they're not inappropriately applying for jobs that they may not qualify for, but we can help them with their next.
Love that. Wow. That's very powerful. Okay. So before I'm gonna have you both finish us up with your top tip or thing you want to leave with our audience. But before we do that, I have a question for you. Let's see which one you're going to pick here. Would you rather live on a boat and never step foot on land again, or live in a large house but never step foot outside again? That's a tough one.
the hurricanes have me scared here in Houston. So I may need to be within four walls and not be on a boat in the middle of the ocean somewhere.
Okay, I can respect that. And those are the comments. Let us know what would you do. Which one would you pick out of those two? Okay. So,
Yeah, I have a terrible seasickness. I cannot be on, water for any length of time
okay.
without taking some sort of Dramamine. So I'm going to have to stay in the house.
Okay, I understand. I understand. Okay, so Shibu, leave us what's your top tip for us, our audience, and then also Carole.
Yeah, top tips. So, I mean, I guess I have to think through this, but, at the end of the day, I think as a country, as a community, as employees, as professionals, we've all gone through so much. But I think one of the things, regardless of where you work, where you're at, what you're doing, the whole concept act is so important. And I think sometimes that gets lost. It doesn't matter what title you're in, it doesn't matter what your job is, it doesn't matter what your role is. But I think respecting one another, respecting each other's opinion, respecting each other's professional life, personal life, all that is so important. And I think we have to continue to do that in order for our communities to grow and our communities to really be better together. So I think that's some of the things that we're not focusing on anymore. And I think that's some of the things that I want to focus on, not only for my kids, but really for peers, my employees, that we all learn to respect one another, regardless of our opinions and our background.
Ah, love that. If my mapping stuff, if I knew it would work right, I'd give you my little clap thing, but I don't want to mess my sound up. So Carole, go ahead. And also, Carole, if you want to give us any futures tips stuff too as well, please incorporate that.
I just think that what Shibu said is so important. But, being in HR, we really are on the people side of the business. And it really is our most valuable resource. You hear that over and over again. But without people all marching in the same direction, understanding how they make a difference, understanding their purpose, and understanding what the organization needs to achieve, that alignment is so important for the business to be successful. And we could have all the innovation, all the bells and whistles of equipment and diagnostics, but it's the people that truly drive the business. So all our efforts really should be towards letting the employees know how valued they are and to allow them to contribute their talent and let them know how we are successful, because that truly is the driving factor for us all.
Love that. So I got that for the respect part from Shibu, and then from you, Carole, I heard more about alignment and then making sure we know that our people know how important they are to us. So I'm going to do my physical clapping for both of you, and those in the audience, if you could give us an emoji of clapping for our guests who spent their time with us. Thank you for showing up and being on video and letting us see who you really are as people, because it's one thing to see what you have written, because I've seen some of the things you've posted and seen some things about you in your past, but to see you talk and spend this time with us is very much appreciated. Thank you for doing that for us and for the healthcare community, as well as the greater LinkedIn community, as well as those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us. Really appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And look forward to having you. We're going to have you back. Hopefully we'll have you back soon, both of you, and hopefully we'll have our friend Lori back as well.
Yes.
All right. So before we sign off, we'll make sure it's safe to cut off the stream. 1 second here. And I know, Jonathan, you'll let us know when we can hit the end stream button.
All right, you're good, Rollis.
Okay.